Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andrew Charlton, and by lunchtime today you will be sick of the sight of me. I'm moderating the first two panels. However, the Commissioner very kindly has agreed to stay for a few minutes, so I'd like to ask my panel up, and we will start by asking the panel for their reactions to what the Commissioner has just said. So our panel, Mr. Guillaume Faury, of course, needs no introduction, the CEO of Airbus. Mr. Christophe Grudler, who is an MEP for the Renew Party, but is also quite senior in the Aerospace Committee. Peter Dilnot, who is the CEO of GKN Aeronautics. Riccardo Procacci, I think I got that wrong, who is the CEO of Aero. I hope his email address is avioaero.aero, that's all I can say. And Filip, Cornelis, who's obviously going to have to stand up for the entire time. Well, I'm happy to stand if needs must, but you do, Commissioner, you do. And Filip will be coming in off the substitutes bench when the Commissioner leaves. But breaching protocol, if you don't mind me so doing, breaching protocol, I'll start with you perhaps, Guillaume. What are your first impressions of what you just heard from the Commissioner?
Yeah. So on the safety topic you mentioned, obviously we've been very busy over the weekend, as you can imagine, with our airline customers, regulators. I want to commend the EASA's leadership in this situation. We have to stay very humble because it was a safety concern. We had to deal with it. So we had an incident in flight with JetBlue a few weeks ago. That's what we really wanted to take care of. And indeed, the way this has been executed, I think the decision itself and the way that was executed was probably better than expected, thanks to the mobilization of a lot of people around the world in a few days. So I think we can put this behind us, but still remind us that planes flying in the air is something we have to be very, very mindful of, and the safety is a day-to-day, minute-by-minute concern. So I'm happy we've put this behind us, but I would remain very humble that it was an event we would have preferred not to deal with. And there's probably a lot of learnings that we need to take from this event. Safety has been managed. That was the top priority, and I'd just like to as I said, stay very humble with that situation. We don't want to face those situations again. On the strategy and the points made by the Commissioner, the way we look at it at Airbus is very consistent with what you explained. Thank you for consideration to civil aeronautics. We believe aeronautics, where we are world leader, indeed. There are not that many sectors where Europe is a world leader, deserve to be supported, to be protected, to be encouraged, to be involved in the rulemaking, in the investment moving forward, for itself, but also because of what it is part of. We are in Europe at a point of juncture when it comes to defense. We need to become more sovereign. We will invest more, where there will be more spending in defense in the face of the challenges we have around us. And actually we are where we are today in defense in Europe, thanks to duality. We could not be as good as we are today at the scale we have just in defense. And the very vast majority of what we do, not everything, but a lot, comes with the power of duality, where we have common technologies, common teams, common engineering services and design offices, but also common platforms and common suppliers. And it's very important to keep in mind that at the moment we want to raise our game in defense, in space as well, that it is actually an aerospace and defense ecosystem that is there in Europe. That's something we have probably done better than others. In the US, for instance, there is an incredible defense sector, but it's very specific. We have managed to grow and have a resilient defense industry, not only, but mostly because we rely on this dual capabilities. So Europe, the EU, is taking care of space more and more. Defis is also raising its game when it comes to the role it plays in defense in Europe. But it's really important to know that what we have in aeronautics is an asset, is a leading sector, and is interdependent with space and aeronautics. So thanks for your very supportive words and the action plan that comes with Europe. That's really at a defining moment, at a very good moment. Indeed, that's teamwork, and your call for action together is something we live every day and we welcome very much. And we're already working together on many topics in the last days for things that were not planned, but for many others in the rest of the year. And obviously, being on the panel with colleagues, I think that's something I can say on behalf of the industry. Yes, we are an interdependent industry. We work together all the time. There's a lot of change ahead of us. We are challenged in terms of competitiveness in Europe. That's something we have to work on. Cost of labor, cost of energy, and the regulatory burden that we have. So these are topics we really need to take care of to remain competitive. We're competitive because of our products and services. So again, what you said on investment is something we live every day. We need to be profitable and competitive to be able to invest, and we need to invest to remain competitive on the long term. So this virtual circle is something we have in this industry at the moment. We need to preserve it. Actually, I think we need to even increase it because we see a rising competition around the world. China is coming to civil aeronautics. We've seen them coming in many other industries, and when they come, it is sort of changing the global picture. It's coming in aerospace. That's what we are up against. Competition is making us better, but we have to be at the right speed and the right scale.
Thank you. So, from a political perspective, Monsieur Grudler, what are your thoughts on the Commissioner's speech?
First of all, thank you very much for ASD for this invitation. I must admit that I welcome the words of the Commissioner, of course, and generally I'm very well aligned with his words, aligned also with the ambition to support the aeronautics sector. And a few words in your speech were very important for me. Dual use, it's clear, we need to do both. Strategic autonomy, it means to help all the ecosystem, all the aeronautic and space ecosystem to be stronger in order to be to continue to be a global leader. It's not to strategic autonomy. It's not to stay in our corner. It's to continue to have Europe as a leader in aeronautics all around the world, and it's very important for me to hear that. Very important also to speak about STIP, Sustainable Transport Investment Plan, is a key tool to answer to the problem of the disponibility of the SAF in the future, in the short future, we can say. And the STIP finally recognize the main issue. The issue today is not a technological issue. It is an financial risk. And with STIP, we have answered the finance. We are able to, well, we will have not far away from 3 billion euro to help the sector. We hope to have maybe 500 million coming from the member states and to help the producer to fill the gap of price, because it's clear that today from fossil fuel to sustainable fuels, well, it's 2 to 10 times the price. And it's not possible for producer to have that. And now we can help to find a solution with the gap, also with the auction, with the investment of the hydrogen bank. All of the tools are very useful. But I will, to finish, talk about the last part of your intervention. It was clear that STIP is one tool. We have also Clean Sky as a joint undertaking as also a tool. But we need a strategic plan for aviation. We need a strong view for the future of aviation in Europe. It is one of the rare sectors where we are a global leader. If we are unable to have a strategy, well, it will not be the same tomorrow, maybe. That's the reason why we will do great work with the Commission at the European Parliament level to find together the best way to promote aviation in the future.
Thank you. I think it's good to know that you're going to fight for the defence industry. I'd hate to see it any other way, really. Riccardo, your thoughts on what the Commissioner said? We could maybe share these mics a little better. Thank you.
Again, first of all, thank you for having me here. I'm on these very distinguished speakers. First of all, I welcome the attention and that Commissioner gave to our industry and the recognition that our industry is key for the future of our continent. I think everything very well articulated. Maybe I can add from my angle a couple of points. The first one is specifically on the importance of a global supply chain. We can focus on having European products, but there are key elements of the supply chain that are inherently global and where we need Europe to become stronger. We were probably talking earlier about forging and casting, certain elements of the supply chain that are very, even from the technological standpoint, very difficult to find in Europe in the right quantity. So when we look at what we can do for our industry, help broadening the angle that we are taking. And probably the second contribution I would like to give is more. It's a European problem, I would say, but specifically for our industry, what we can do to help with simplification, cut on red tape. There is in the moment we compete in a global market, and red tape is a sensible cost that is impairing our competition. Not impossible to solve, but probably being vocal in recognizing it and addressing it would further help our industry. I will leave it there now.
Thank you.
Contribute more.
Philippe, I'm going to assume your comment is bravo, if you don't mind. I'll go to Peter, if I may, first. We'll come back to you, Phil, I promise. Yeah.
Thanks. And Commissioner, I'd also add thanks for your clear focus and support here. And I think, as we've all said, it's great to be in a position of leadership here in Europe and leadership in what is actually clearly a fast-growing market as well, but one facing huge challenges regarding sustainability in the world and when we operate. I think there's two separate themes that I heard and I think will come through strongly with our strategy. The first is to nurture where we are. We shouldn't be complacent about our position. We do have leadership in civil aeronautics, but we should be humble about that, and we should nurture it in terms of the supply chain outside of the OEMs and large companies, relatively large companies like ours, is a very fragmented supply chain. And as we all know, as we're shipping aircraft and trying to get those out in these last few months of the year, the supply chain is incredibly important. So thinking about it from a broad ecosystem. And I think you've already heard themes around how we nurture European industry from a point of view of making sure we don't get overburdened with regulation. We can be smart using digital technologies and so on, but cutting down on anything we can do on regulation. And of course, energy cost is going to be an important part of the mix. And the other piece is clearly around inflation, and certainly from an industrial context, when you're running a global business as we are on this stage, labour cost is an important factor. And of course, that's mainly a national thing, but anything that can be done around a European level, I think, is important. So nurturing where we are to maintain competitiveness. And I think that also plays to the sustainability angle, because the reality is from a sustainability point of view, the biggest impact we can do is to ship more of the current generation of aircraft. We have backlogs of 9 years currently, and those aircraft are 20% more environmentally friendly than the ones that are flying today. So actually supporting the supply chain to deliver the ramp up and that fantastic backlog of aircraft that we have in Airbus, but with other OEMs as well, has a huge impact, and supply chains are constraining our ability to deliver that at the moment. So I think that's one. And then the second piece, and I think the more obvious and perhaps the more exciting opportunity for us beyond sustaining and nurturing is clearly innovation. And we've seen that with world-leading companies around sustainability, the work that's going on, and I think Europe does lead here on SAF, which I think is an important solution, but an interim solution, and Commissioner, you mentioned that, around hydrogen, electric, and here in Europe we lead in that regard, and in collaboration, and I can point to a couple of examples. It's not just because Guillaume sat next to me, but what we do within the supply chain is a tier one around things like composite technology and in propulsion with GE. So we've got an opportunity here, but I would just state again that I think nurturing is important of the industry that we've got and not being complacent about this leadership position.
Thank you. Beautifully summarised, if I may say, nurturing and innovation. But let me go back. Christophe, the aviation or the aerospace industry, does it need any more money? It's doing fine, isn't it? It's a world leader. It's very successful. I mean, we don't need to. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. We don't need any more money, do we? Is that the answer? Is money always the answer?
It's clear that money is the starting point. And it's clear, as I said before, we are a global leader in Europe on aviation. And if we are unable to put money on the table, it can create a big problem for the future. And we want to prepare the future, the plane in 10, 20, 30 years. We need first to put European money, public money. Of course, the idea is to have a lot of private money, a lot of investment. For example, I talked just before about the SAF. You know that today we have in Europe 40 different projects of e-fuels. None at start the investing decision because they are waiting, they are not sure, it costs a lot of money. And if we are able to put money on the table to help about the gap of the price, for example, and it's not only a problem about the price. With money, we are also able to be in an autonomy. It's clear that if we are leaving, for example, with the fuels, the dependency on fossil fuel, it's not to depend on the SAF coming from China or America. We need to have our autonomy on this fuel, and with money, it will be easier. With money, also, we can support all the ecosystem. Because sometimes it's easier to push money for the companies, of course, in the production, in all the value chain. But the most important is to support the whole ecosystem. And with money, we can finance academy, we can finance skills, with a very important European fund. It is Horizon Europe. Horizon Europe, maybe it will double the money we have. Today it's 96 billion. We will go not far away for 180 billion. It is linked with the Competitiveness Fund. It means that it is important to have fundamental research, but also to have applied research in order to find the way and to be able to scale up in very short term. That's the reason why, of course, we need money, and without money, if you are not investing in the future, the other will do it. And we have seen the last months is how much money China put on the table, America put on the table. Indeed. That's the reason why we are the best on aviation. We need to continue. That's the reason why it's well spent money when we put it on aviation.
So, Filip, did you bring your checkbook this morning? Are we good to go?
No, Commissioner has it, and he left.
And he's left.
But he did make, I think, a very important announcement that we are indeed working on an aviation or an aeronautics and aviation strategy.
He gave the impression he thought he might work on it, not that we are working on it, Filip.
Okay. But you see, he's very solution-oriented. You saw the chair he brought up to the stage.
Indeed.
For once, we did not set up a committee that was looking at different options and the impact. And
You've been reading the Aviation Intelligence Report.
so
haven't
I will take that as a cue to get going also on the strategy. And it's very useful that we got today, by chance, from ASD, a couple of suggestions that would be very, very useful. We take them on board. And of course, we will also set up workshops in the coming months. And I hope also another meeting, dedicated meeting with the Commissioner and CEOs from the industry to wrap up, let's say, what are the key issues. But I can see already that we will be looking at creating regulatory space, stepping back in some domains. There are a lot of cross-cutting issues, AI regulation, cyber regulation, etc. That is not aviation specific, where the Commission already has an agenda to simplify things, but also in the aviation sphere, we have started a process together with EASA to look at where we can simplify the safety regulation. Of course, not without lowering safety, but some of the procedural reporting requirements. There was last week a so-called reality check meeting with the industry, and many were there from the associations coming with very useful suggestions. One other example, we put in the military mobility package a proposal to create regulatory sandboxes in Europe, something we've never had, to create the ability to test new things under controlled safety regulation, but outside the normal regulation. So we are doing certain things to step back and create space for that innovation. Secondly, we will be looking at the successor to the joint undertakings, the Clean Aviation Joint Undertaking, CESAR Joint Undertaking. We will need a lot of input from the industry to tell us, okay, what do you need for the next 10 years? Because the next financial framework will run until 35. We need to see what can we deliver, what can we bring close to the market in that period, what do we need to prepare for the period after 35, and try to incorporate that into those future joint undertakings. And I'm very hopeful that there will be future joint undertaking. And also we will look at, in the strategy, at international competitiveness and to see where are the issues with level playing field, unfair competition, how can we shield our industry from such situations. But obviously we will need the input from the industry for us to understand where are the key issues that we need to address. There are only some things we can do at EU level. Sometimes we need the member states to travel together with us. And of course, the strategy is also an opportunity to pass messages and try to build a common view with the member states.
Right. Please.
If I can add a little bit of color. This is an industry that is extremely long cycle. When I think about our next generation engine, what we call RISE, we started spending money on that technology, right, like 2020. Hopefully, the engine will be tested, flight tested before the end of this decade. Will hopefully be under a wing. We'll see if Guillaume wants to have one of them under its wing in the first half of the next decade. And we'll start break-even, become cash positive, probably typically 10 years from when it starts service. It's a huge commitment that the industry
and all the money has to be spent up front.
And all the money has to spend, huge commitment, huge risk. And so an EU that, as in the case of RISE, is helping us with the development of the basic technologies that then goes in the engine, makes the difference. Also because a little bit from maybe selfish standpoint, having the money available here means that that technology, that know-how, those engineers will be trained here and not somewhere else in the world. That's a little bit selfish, if you want, but that also helps.
But that raises a really interesting point, Guillaume, doesn't it? We're talking a new engine 20 years from now, 25 years from now. But in the meantime, we're 40% of the world market. We're doing extraordinarily well. What do we have to do to avoid success-based optimism? How do we stop being complacent? What do we have to do to keep pushing?
Well, I think we keep pushing. We are with the front foot forward when it comes to the preparation of the next generation. We could be on our laurels and deliver and not prepare the future. And we have engaged with the partnership with CFM and RISE into a very ambitious transition from the very successful A320 family that we have today to the next generation. We are not waiting for facts to force us to get there. We are looking forward to do it at a time where we have the means, we have the opportunity that fits with the sustainability agenda, having in mind the 2050 objective to be carbon neutral. So I don't think in that case we are complacent. I think on the contrary, we've taken the bull by the horns to raise the game and target another 20, 25, let's say between 20 and 30% fuel saving for the next generation of aircraft, going from what is today a 50% use of SAF to a 100% use of SAF. And we are actually looking at technologies that are putting ourselves outside of the comfort zone. The RISE engine is an engine with an open fan. It's an open rotor that comes with a lot of risks, constraints, changes on the architecture that we have to analyze one by one, and that's a job we are doing with CFM in a very mature way with GE and Safran. We're looking at wings that will be significantly out of the usual level of knowledge when it comes to technology. They will be very, the span will be very large, they will be thin, they will be with dynamic control because we can't afford the level of rigidity on thin wings like this. So it's really something that is new. I'm not speaking about materials, about the fact that this plane will be digital native. So I think in this industry, we are not waiting for others to challenge us. We are coming with technologies to further challenge others and try to be the first one to come to the market. Being the first mover always comes with more risks. In complex systems, sometimes you like to be the so-called fast follower, letting the others taking risk. But being the world leader, and CFM is the world leader on commercial aircraft engines for single aisle. Jointly, we ambition to place the next aircraft with a lot of technology breakthroughs. So I don't think in that case we are complacent. I think we are very ambitious.
But you see the progress effectively. Well, let me start that again. A few years ago, Airbus was very strongly in favour of hydrogen, and it was going to be the next big thing. Now you think it's the next big thing after the next one, is it? Or is hydrogen down the agenda?
No, let me take a step back. We have two things that we really believe in. The first one is this very successful single-aisle sector that serves for connectivity all around the world for a huge number of flights every day. That's part of the way societies are working. We want to drive this forward, having sustainability and competitiveness in mind. What is good with an aircraft that is burning less fuel is that it is at the same time more competitive and more sustainable. So it goes in the same direction. That's why we have backlogs at Airbus of 9,000 planes at the moment. These aircraft are both more sustainable and more competitive. So airlines really want those tools to move forward. And we need to prepare the next generation. The A320 aircraft did its first flight on the 22nd of February, 1987. So it's an incredible success. We've put new engines and we've made some modifications, but the platform is still now an old platform. So that's why we have potential for much more and better. That's one thing. The other one is how do you, when you look at all the potential for powering an aircraft in the future, is fuel the best? Well, the problem, jet fuel is very carbon intensive. It's very energy intensive, but it's very carbon intensive. What are the alternatives? And we screened all the possibilities, and we came to the conclusion in 2019 at Airbus that the most relevant alternative energy, source of energy, was hydrogen. in jet fuel, you have 12,000 watt-hours per kilogram of energy. And flying is about flying kilograms, okay, flying weight. In a battery, you have 200 to 500, maybe 1,000 one day.
And sorry, just to go back, and jet fuel, it's 12,000.
12,000. Battery
with
is
a battery,
200 to 500.
200 to 500.
Maybe if we see a big breakthrough, it will be 1,000 compared to 12,000.
Wow.
10 times less energy dense. When you go to hydrogen, it's 33,000.
Oh.
So it's okay. So hydrogen has a fantastic potential in terms of energy content. So that's why we've launched the development of a hydrogen airplane. We did 5 years of development starting 2019, 2020, when there was a lot of hype on going to the hydrogen society, use of green hydrogen moving forward. So we thought it was the right moment to come with an aircraft. 5 years later, we came last year to the conclusion, putting all things together, that yes, we can do a hydrogen-powered aircraft that works. But if we would have launched the aircraft now, the aircraft that we would have produced would have been less competitive than a traditional aircraft, which means the number of airlines buying this aircraft would have been minimum. We would not have had a good business case. So we said, we're not good enough. At the same time, can you hear me? Yes. Yeah. At the same time, we saw that the availability, the perspectives for availability of green hydrogen at scale, at the right price, blah, 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 has been pushed out to the right. So even if we would have had a competitive aircraft entering into service in 2035, we think today we would not have the fuel, the hydrogen, that is required to power the airplane. So,
and hydrogen needs water.
So we decided to do one more cycle of development to come to the point where we could launch a competitive aircraft, hydrogen-powered, and we will have to look at the potential synchronization with the rise of hydrogen as a source of energy that is more available than what we have today. Right. So we continue to believe in the hydrogen for the future of flight in a sustainable way, but the point of entry into service has been pushed to the right because of the technology of the airplane, but also because of the lack of progress, or the very slow progress, on hydrogen as a source of energy made available to a lot of sectors, including aviation.
Right. So, Peter, I assume that we've gone one more cycle of the normal aircraft is good news for engine component manufacturers, isn't it? Nothing to worry about for another little while.
Well, I think actually the way to think about sustainability and what's been described here is there's an increasing intersection actually between propulsion and aerodynamics, airframes, and that holds true today, clearly, and it all comes through going forwards as well. And specifically on the next generation of aircraft, what Guillaume and Riccardo have talked about is a completely new design of engine, but if that engine's going to go on to an Airbus aircraft, it's going to have an airframe designed for that, given the nature of the open rotor. And I think this is a really fascinating and important time in the industry. But I would also just commend that, and we are a global tier one player actually in both engines and on the airframe side. And clearly Europe and Airbus in particular are leading in terms of that next generation of aircraft. That intersection between the two is important. I think the other thing I'd say is that what Europe is doing overall in both of those areas is important. Riccardo talked about the open fan rotor, but Afalia is an EU-based program, significant funding coming into the consortium, which includes us. And similarly, actually, on wings, Guillaume mentioned there the importance of more thinner, lighter wings with higher lift and less drag. There's a lot of work going on, dare I say, on in the UK, but supported by the Europe, exactly, part of the broader Europe, and again supported by government funding to make sure that those developments are there. And it does make a difference to have that funding because we're running a global business that can attract the attention. And finally, I just reiterate actually on the again from a next development, and hydrogen is clearly the breakthrough. I think we have worked together to see through a range of projects that it is possible, but it's primarily, I think, about infrastructure as much as anything else. And again, government and the EU needs to play a part here, because the reality is SAF, as we've already talked about, as an example, is just not economically viable unless you have that stimulus. And I think the same is true with hydrogen, really. We need a broader plan for around supply of hydrogen as much as we can. We can make the planes to fly it in time.
Yeah, right. My view on STIP, the Sustainable Transport Incentive Program, is just, we learned it all from the Supremes, you know, STIP in the name of love. We've got very few minutes left, but where do you see your principal competitor, Riccardo? And where do you think your competitor is going to come from next? Apart from this man, obviously.
It's a difficult question because this is an industry where take Safran. I wake up in the morning, I compete with them. By noon, I am their best supplier. In the afternoon, we are partners in CFM, in the CFM joint venture of that makes rice. So when it comes to the Western world, the industry is really one.
But increasingly, it's not coming to the Western world, is it? I mean,
exactly.
The Western world is being met by the Eastern world.
What will change the world is our world, is competition from, in my view at least, competition from China.
China?
I remember receiving a few years back, not many, a few years back, a phone call from someone that wanted me to go and work for a Chinese company that was building an engine company. 2 years later, there were kind of 10,000 people working there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Guillaume, is China your biggest competitor, or is that other big ugly one there still?
China, I mean, COMAC of China is an emerging competitor. The 919 is on the market, sort of 20 or 25 aircraft flying in China.
It was flying around.
And they have a national, then regional, then global ambition to compete with Boeing and Airbus on the single aisle. They have announced the launch of the 929. They apparently have in mind the 939. So they think of a range of products. It takes time. We've seen that ourselves, others have tried hard to come to this market, and not everybody has been successful, and it will probably be the same for them. But they have a national market that is 20% of the world market. That's a fantastic strategic and competitive advantage. The Chinese airlines are state-owned. COMAC is state-owned, so we see that there is an ecosystem in China that is second to none around the world. They come from behind. They go fast. That's what we see in China. So we have to be very lucid and not complacent and move forward as well, and with speed and scale, and that's what we're trying to do. So there is a cooperation with China in some ways. There is a competition with China. There are markets. We're supplying from China. So welcome to the global aerospace world.
Well, indeed.
About competition, cooperating and competing at the same time. And you have to find your way as a company to be ahead or to accelerate and stay ahead when you're ahead. And that's the way I look at it. Tough competition coming with COMAC, I think.
So looking at my two regulator legislative friends, do you see, how do you see we can best respond to this challenge? First you, perhaps if I could, Christophe, and then Filip. And can I point at the time? We have very little left.
Yeah, it's clear for the challenge. It's clear that another time the strategic plan for aviation will be key, because we can find answers.
Here's one I've made up already.
Yeah. Yes. I hadn't read it yet, but in my view, what is very important in kind of conclusion, as I understand, is very important, is to stay close together, all together, to find the best way. Because it's very different. I know that we ASD, you have 28 member states, as I remember. Well, you have a lot of member states. They need to work together to find a solution. At the Commission level, for example, because we talk a lot about the Commissioner Tsitsi Kostas, they need to do common work, because with a strategic plan for aviation, in my view, if it is about the ecosystem, you need to involve the Commissioner Kubilius also, because we are talking about dual use, it's important. Commissioner Séjourné, because we are also talking about the Clean Shell deal, where he put inside a part of Aeronautics, and maybe Ostra, maybe Rivera. We have a lot of different commissioners. We need to work together on that. It's the same problem with the Parliament, because we have very specialized committees. And if everyone stay in this corridor, we will be unable to have a strategic plan for aviation. That's the reason why an intergroup like the intergroup I share is very important, because we are more than 100 members of the parliament in different committees and in different political groups. And all together with stakeholders also outside ESD, maybe we have some academies, some university able to help us. I'm sure this strategic plan for aviation will be key for the future of this so important economic sector.
Thank you. Filip?
Yes, indeed, time is running out, not only on this panel, but
Indeed
also more widely, because we see that a country like China, when they focus attention and resources on a particular objective, they are capable not only to catch up, but even to overtake us. So this is a reality that we are facing in this sector as well. There has been a lot of attention for the sectors who are already, let's say, in that dire situation, but we also need to think about the sectors who are not yet there, but could be there in the future. And I think we need to see aeronautical sector as one where competition is global. I mean, as Commission, we like to protect competition inside Europe, but this is a sector that's clearly global. If you look at the 0 for 0 choice that even the Trump administration has made, it's a recognition that this is a global sector and global competition. So I think we need to focus better our resources and attention in Europe, meaning not compete as much with each other, but stick together as Europeans and build scale that is able to withstand that competition from the Far East and the Far West among us Europeans, but also to strengthen the dual use aspect. We can see in theory that is there, and it's an industrial reality in Europe, but at political and government level, I still see a lot of separation between those two worlds. And I think others are showing us today that we are in a hybrid situation in many ways, and the response needs to be a hybrid one as well. There's still a lot of work to do, and I think ASD is very well placed to pass this message as well.
So thank you, Filip. Thank you, everyone. We've run out of time. I'd like to ask you if you'd be so kind as to join me in giving a hybrid response to that panel by all of us agreeing to join our hands together and thank our panel for what I think was a really interesting conversation.